Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Very good. Namaste, everyone. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here with you live from our temple, our beautiful temple, the headquarters of the International Sanatana Dharma Society, coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska, what we very affectionately like to call the Vedic Heartland. What we're going to be doing today is something very special, actually, and I don't say that lightly. What we're going to be doing today is 1 hour of questions and answers. And let me explain what I mean by what I just said, that I don't say that lightly, that this is something very special. We as living beings, as human beings, most of us unconsciously, some of us consciously, are searching for truth. We're searching for truth. Well, what does that mean? Well, this is 2026. What that means today, of course, is not just the stereotypical idea of what you needed to do at one time, what I did, and what was necessary at one time, before there was an internet, before there was social media, before there was YouTube or anything like this. And that is that if you were searching for truth, you had to seriously search. And what did that mean? Well, let me tell you what I did. I read, and again, not online. I'm talking about starting in the very early 70s, 1972, 73, when there were only books. And you would have to haunt libraries, and you would have to venture places where there were hopefully individuals who could share truth with you. If you were more serious, more sincere, you had the ability to travel overseas. Let's say you're in America or Europe, someplace like this. You could indeed go to India, to the Himalayas, to Tibet, places like this, sacred places. And you could search for, and hopefully find an authentic and real guru. Not the hundreds of fake gurus that you would meet along the way. And believe me, before you meet a real one, you'll meet hundreds of fake ones. But rather, this is what you had to do. When a person said, I want to know the truth, this is what it meant at one time. And that was only the early 70s. Previous to that, of course, it was harder. It was even harder. Well, again, so many of us are searching for truth. How do we know that truth in accordance with the Vedic tradition? Not just any tradition, not New Age, not American pop spirituality, not people who run spiritual businesses, LCCs, etc., etc. No. In accordance with individuals who they truly and sincerely and without playing games want to know truth, want to know it regardless of the cost. What do? Well, we approach someone who has that truth. Very simple. You want to become a brain surgeon. What do? You approach people who are brain surgeons. In other words, you go to medical school. You learn from the best. You don't just say, I want to be a brain surgeon, I'm going to teach myself. No, that's a fool. That's someone who's going to kill a lot of people along the way. No, rather, what do? We approach a guru. However, all of that being said, how difficult it is indeed to even come to that point of finding an authentic guru, approaching that guru. Do you think it ends there? No. Even then, an individual needs to know how to ask questions in such a way that they will derive true answers. So you see how difficult this process is. Now, of course, this is 2026, and we have a lot of people who drone on about fairness a lot. Well, that doesn't sound fair. Why should it be so difficult to know truth, to know God? Because it's truth, because it's God. Because we're not talking about approaching your favorite celebrity. Because we're not talking about learning weird, wacky facts about the Avengers. Because we're talking about knowing that truth which, once we know it, our entire life has become perfect. For such a thing is difficult. We know this. You want anything in this world that is of importance. It's going to be difficult. You want a black belt in pick your favorite martial art. No, you're not going to go to one class and the next day you have a black belt. Unless that's a diploma mill. You see, unless it's fake. No, you know you have to practice for years, and then you get a black belt. Again, same with medical school, same with anything. You want to have a career. No, not just a job at McDonald's. No, you want to have a career where you're maybe the vice president of a corporation making $1 million, $2 million. Oh, that's going to take work, effort. And all of those things are nothing. Nothing. And yet you have to work so hard. So fair? Oh, it's fair. It's proportional. You want to know that which is the highest? Well, approach that human, quote unquote, who is the highest, i.e. who knows God. And that's the guru. So indeed, when I say what we're doing is special, oh, it's special. It's special. To have the ability, indeed, to ask someone sincere questions with humility, such that we can now not just satisfy our curiosity. No, that's internet culture. Not just satisfy our curiosity. Not just see, oh, who has more truth than someone else. No. The reason why we inquire into the nature of the Absolute is such that we can save our lives. That is, we're suffering. We're suffering. We are suffering. It's a crazy world. There are wars happening right now. It's a crazy world. There are thousands of people dying right now. It's a crazy world. There's misery. There's suffering. There's also some happiness too. But if we want indeed our true misery existentially to come to an end, and to embrace that which is ultimate reality, such that we have everything that even unbeknownst to us, our soul is craving. We want peace, we want truth, we want joy, we want meaning, etc. That's why we ask questions, so that we can achieve that. So all that being said, indeed, we're going to have a Q&A. Let me please encourage people to begin asking your questions. And let me just tell you, please stay toward the end, because I have some announcements, and they are announcements. And you are going to want to be here for these announcements toward the end. And there are quite a few of them, several of them actually. And they're wonderful announcements that will amaze people. But all that being said, indeed, if there are any questions, now then is the time to begin asking your questions. And that is also for the individuals here. And you have a hand risen already. Please, nice and loud, please feel free.
Is it a true statement that all beings in materiality eventually make it to Vaikuntha? And secondarily, is there a point, any point, where a being's falling into materiality ceases and there is no more materiality?
Two very good questions. Very good questions. And I'll answer them in that order, actually. First of all, within the scope of eternality, and it's important to understand those words, to understand the answer to your first question. And that is, within the scope of eternality. Well, what does that mean? People know that word. Some mathematicians, some physicists may think that they understand what that means, but the experience is something very different. Within the scope of eternality, yes, every living being who is currently in illusion, or who will ever be in illusion, will eventually be freed from that illusion. But that's the thing. Within that scope of eternality, what does that mean? What that means is pick a number, any number that you can think of, however big it is. Is it possible that some people, some Atmans, will be reincarnating for that duration of time? Certainly. And that's the thing. Everyone is different in accordance with who they are, their own personality, their individual personality, and then the attendant karma that happens to them, the choices that they make, etc. Some people will be here for 4 lifetimes. And they're liberated. Some people will be here for 1,000. Now, interestingly, as I say that, for some people in the audience, I'm sure they're thinking, oh, that's so many lifetimes. No. No, that's actually not very long. If you were to say, oh, let's just even stick to humans. Let's make this simple for people. Because, of course, we don't just reincarnate as humans. Oh, we could be gods, we could be animals. But let's just say, so for the point of example, let's say the typical human lives for maybe 75 years. So that times 1,000. That sounds like, oh my Lord, that's so many lifetimes and so many years. not within the context of even the lifetime of a god. That's about the lifespan of one lower echelon deva, a lower echelon deva, about 1,000 lifetimes, human lifetimes, of roughly 75 years each. No, some people can be here for a million lifetimes, being reincarnated again and again, and again, add any number you want. However, quantity seen within the context of eternality becomes meaningless. Let me repeat that. Quantity, number, within the context of eternality, number becomes meaningless. Because now we're talking about a scope that is spiritual in nature, eternality being of the nature of the spiritual. That being the case, a person can be here for, again, let's just pick what some people would consider a high number. Oh, here's a person, they're going to reincarnate 1 billion times. Within the context of eternality, that's not even the blink of an eye. However, if that's how long it takes them to achieve liberation, that's how long it takes them. But let me finish answering the first part of your question by saying this. The Atman who has fallen into materiality due to his own inherent nature is destined to eventually become liberated. So that's the first part. The second part you ask is an interesting one, and that is to restate it. So would it ever get to the point where, enough time, quote unquote, goes by, and there are no more Atmans who would fall into illusion, come into the material world, thus not necessitating the existence of materiality? No. That will never happen. And again, why? Several factors actually, including indeed eternality. And that is that when we speak about the Atmans, first of all, there are an infinite number of them. Truly an infinite number. In existence, both those who are within the material world and those who have not yet come to the material world, those who have achieved liberation from the material world and are now in the spiritual world, all combined. There are truly an unlimited number of Atmans. This being the case, that coupled with the inherent free will that is contained within the essence of each Atman, there will always be Atmans making the wrong decision. And again, within eternality, and this is how now eternality comes into this second question. That, of course, when we think of, here comes an Atman, they have self-individuation, they're now aware of themselves, and now there's free will, now there's choice, desire, etc. Now they choose illusion rather than reality. They fall into the world. Now, of course, we have no choice. Seeing this from a material perspective, we think in terms of causality. But in actuality, this is an eternal process. It's a process that's going on now and always will be. It's something that's outside of space, outside of time, and outside of causality. That being the case, it is one of those universal metaphysical constants that is always happening. That Atmans will make the wrong choice and go from that quiescent state in the Brahmajyoti to then falling into the material world. It's an eternal process. So no, there is not like a almost Abrahamic sort of eschatology that, eventually it will all stop. Evil, quote unquote, will end. People's ability or Atman's ability to make the wrong choice will end. When? You see, this is the problem with Abrahamic eschatology, is that it's dependent upon something that's inferior, i.e. the temporal time. So, that alone I could talk about for an hour, but we won't. But Abrahamic eschatology and the problems with it from a metaphysical and ontological perspective. But does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. My pleasure. Any other questions here before we go to the questions online? No? Okay, we're good for now. Very good. That being the case, let me look at the questions that are here online, and give me a moment, please. There are several questions that are here, and I want to go to the top. I don't want to miss any potentially very nice questions. So give me a moment to read this. Very good. Here is a good, actually, truly philosophical question. And I don't use that term lightly. People know that I make a distinction between pop philosophy versus actual philosophy. And it is Namaste Sri Guru is the source of knowledge inherently important to the essence of the information. Yes, it's crucial. Yes, actually. And let me explain well, first of all, let me explain to people who may not understand exactly what your question is, exactly what you're asking here. So there is one thing, and that is the very essence of the information that is at hand. That essence being either that what is stated conforms with truth or does not. So that's the essence of the information. But then you're asking about the relationship between that versus the source of that knowledge. So this is really what you're asking. You're asking really two epistemological questions, but the latter dealing more with the qualitative nature of knowledge versus how knowledge is acquired. But there are two aspects of epistemology. But that being the case, yes, both are important. The reason why this is the case is because X statement, and you see this is where we can understand why the source is of importance. When you make X statement, X proposition, which may or may not be true, whether it is true or not, actually, it's still a proposition and only a proposition. In other words, it's a statement. God is real. There's one statement. God is not real. There's a second statement. These are two oppositional propositions. One is true. One has to be true. They cannot both be true. Now, let's say that we accept that, all right, the former is true, that God exists. There is indeed such a thing as God. Well, that is true. The essence of that is true. However, it's a dead statement. It's merely a proposition. It's something that could have been given to us by a computer. It's something that, again, it's 2026. Ask Grok. I don't know what Grok would say. I don't use AI. But let's just say, ask Grok, ask ChatGPT. And let's say it gives you the correct answer, which is the correct answer. Yes, God exists. Yes, God is true. Well, that is factually correct. However, it is knowledge that is not of the nature of wisdom. Why? Because wisdom necessarily is living. This being the case, if Grok tells you, yes, God exists, versus you go to a proper source, i.e., you go to the Vedic scriptures, you go to a true guru, and you ask the question, Guruji, does God exist? And the guru in verbal form gives you the same answer as Grok would. Yes, God does exist. It's not the same. It's not the same. Why? Because of the qualitative aspect. I.e., Grok will give you something that is factually either correct or incorrect, whereas the guru will give you A, only that which is correct, but B, will then help you to incorporate that into your being in such a way that it has meaning. So this is why the source is also of great importance. This is the other thing, which is the simplest epistemological issue. And that is, you say, information, the essence of that information. Well, the thing is, who is to determine the essence of the information unless you determine the source of the information? So indeed, again, just use this example ad nauseum. So you ask Grok, does God exist? Grok thinks about it and comes back to you, yes, God exists. How do you know what is the essential nature of that essential information? In other words, Grok just made a statement, but that's all it is. Is it correct? Is it not correct? Within the grand scope of things, yes, it either is or is not, but you can't know. You cannot know. Why is this the case? Because, again, Grok is simply giving you a statement. How do you have the ability now to assess whether or not it's true? Now, it may or may not be true, but how do you know? So again, does God exist? Oh, yes, that is true. But it still begs the question, how do you know? And this is one of the primary ways in which we know is we look at the source. That is, that source is not just a dead AI, because that's what they are, Artificial intelligence, I'm sorry to tell you, is dead. There's no consciousness there. There's nothing alive there. It imitates, therefore it's artificial intelligence. Looks like intelligence. It's not. It can be programmed by anyone. One person can program it to give you the answer. No, there is no God. Another person can program it. Yes, there is a God. Another person can program it. Yes, God is the great rainbow unicorn in the sky, and etc., etc., etc. So indeed, knowing the source is crucial. Because without knowing the source, you will not know whether the information is essential or not. So I hope that answers that question. Give me a moment, please, as I look at a few more of these questions. And we have so many questions, it's truly amazing. Nice. Here are some general questions. There are 3 of them, and I will answer them. I'll try to answer them somewhat briefly, because I've answered these in the past. But they're good questions. And it's Namaste Sri Acharya. 1. What does it mean to love or miss God? 2. What virtues make someone worthy to receive the Shakti of God? And 3. In which ways does our soul resemble God? Very nice. Very good. So I will answer this in this sequence, actually. So first of all, you ask, what does it mean? And you state this in an interesting way. What does it mean to love or miss God? Very nice. So let me answer this, and I'll take them as meaning the same thing, actually, even though there is a slight difference, just due to the sake of time. What it means to love God, essentially, is this. If we are to take the repercussions of ahankara, of false ego, i.e. our illusory state and everything that occurs as a result of our illusory state, that is, think of everything, the fear that we have, the anger that we have, the lust that we have. Think of everything, every negative occurrence that happens because of the fact that we are operating out of false ego, that is artificial identity. Now, if we were to eliminate 100% of that to the point of absolute purity, on the one hand, this is going to be sequential, so please pay very close attention. So in sequence, first we do that, i.e. the via negativa. We rid ourselves of that which we are not. Is that enough to then come to the point of loving God? No, not necessarily. First we come to that point where we eliminate that which we are not. We eliminate that which is what? The opposite of loving God. So that's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing on top of that is, well, now we have to actually venture in a via positiva sort of way, a positive way toward the actual spiritual. Well, that also is sequential. It's not just a matter of, it's not just some amorphous thing. Today, everything is amorphous, including spirituality. Everything means the same thing. You just use vague language. No. To positively be spiritual means something, and it's sequential. So the first thing that we do, of course, is to now come to the point of first self-realization. And what does that mean? Well, in turn, what that means is that, among other things, we begin to cultivate actual positive spiritual virtues within us. So you see, what was the first step? It was that via negativa. We get rid of everything that is not, everything that is illusory, everything that's spiritually debilitating toward us. Now in the process of self-realization, now we begin to do the opposite. Now we begin to grow those inherent virtues that are there within us. Love, compassion, etc., etc. Then we eventually come to the point of self-realization, full self-realization, Atma Jnana. That means understanding our true self. Now, the wise yogi, the truly wise yogi, who also has great humility, will also come to the point where they realize that, no, now I know myself. But it's not enough to simply know myself. Now I need to know the self of myself. Because with humility, and only with humility, see, if you don't have humility, you don't come to this point that I'm about to say. And we see so many so-called spiritual people who don't have humility. And they don't come to this point. And that is realizing that, oh, I've realized my true self. My true self is something that is wondrous, that is wonderful, my soul, my Atman. But I am not my own creator. I didn't create who I am. I am not the source of myself, but rather I realize I also have a source. That's God. Only the spiritual person with humility, i.e. who's sincere, i.e. who is for real, comes to that point. If they don't come to that point, they're off. Now, realizing that there is God. Now, of course, how do we know God? Well, we come to the point, indeed, where we wish to have personal relationship with God. We begin now to go deeper in our meditation to the point where we begin to experience not just ourselves, but now the self of ourself, God, within us. And then that being the case, as we know God more and more, we enter into relationship with God. What does it mean to enter into relationship? In the positive sense, in the spiritual sense, not the worldly yucky sense. Oh, I have a relationship with so-and-so. No. In the truly, purely spiritual sense, ego-free, it means love. So it's at this point that indeed we begin to love God. And then you ask here, interestingly, let's say an ontology of love. What does it mean to love? What it means to love is to love. It's actually very simple. Whether we're loving God or whether we're loving our soulmate or our husband, our wife, as long as it is a love of the nature of absolute purity, what does it mean? It means that you so yearn to be with that other. And in this case, we're talking about God. But you so yearn to be with the other to the point where all that matters to you is the happiness of that other. All that matters to you is the other, to the point where you become secondary in all ways. Well, this is what it means to love God. What it means is that we love God to the point where we have zero ego. All that exists within our awareness is God. Thus, Brahma Vidya, God awareness, God consciousness. Very good. So that answers the first question. What virtues make someone worthy to receive the Shakti of God? As far as which virtues? Yama Niyama. Very simple. Yama and Niyama, this is the very foundation of all things. But then on top of that, we are also to cultivate all of the virtues that are spoken of within the totality of the Vedic scriptures. That means Bhagavad Gita. That means the Upanishad. I don't have time to list them all. They're already listed. Read the Bhagavad Gita. You'll see lists. In some cases, sometimes 30 things, virtues that we are to acquire, etc. And in which ways does our soul resemble God? Oh, very good. That's a good question. But then to be fair and to be honest, we also have to ask in what ways are we different from God? Because when we only are interested in, how are we similar to God? See, that's spiritual egotism. No, we have to know both. We are similar to God qualitatively. In other words, God is of the nature of consciousness. This is why God is called Purusha. But we individual Atmans are also of the nature of consciousness. So we also are called Purusha. In Sankhya philosophy, other places like that, we are called Purusha. So, this being the case as far as the quality, i.e. the essential substance of who we are, it is not different from God. God is Satchit Ananda, so are we, etc. But then how are we different from God? You see, you can't ask half the question. If you're honest, you must ask the full question. How are we different? Very simple. We are not God. Easy to say, but how do you prove? You prove in such a way that a 5-year-old can understand. Indeed, most 5-year-olds understand this, that we are not God. We are not our own origin. We are not omnipresent. I won't go into this, but I've actually known individuals who went up to fake gurus in India. I actually knew them. They would go up to fake gurus in India who claimed to be God. And of course, what does that mean? Even the fake guru didn't quite understand. It means you are, to state it philosophically, an omnicompetent being. What does that mean, that you're omnicompetent? That means that there is nothing perceptual or conceptual that is outside of your scope. That means you are omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, etc., etc. And all you have to do to prove to someone that they're not God is challenge them on that. Oh, you're God. Okay. You are God with everything that's understood by that term God, correct? Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I'm God. Oh, so you're omnipresent. All right. Well, I have a friend who is, we're here in wherever India right now. I have a friend who is in New York right now. I've told him to do a specific thing at this exact moment. Can you please tell me what he's doing? And I have my phone. I'm going to call him in a moment and confirm. What is he doing? Are you there with him right now? See, this would require omnipresence and omniscience. And of course, the fake gurus could never do this. Never. So no, we are not God. So in this way, we are different from God. And I can go on, obviously, for a long time, but there are many more questions here. So let me go on to some more of these. Nice question. This is a unique question, and I will absolutely answer this. It is, Namaste Sri Acharya. Should there be a revival of spiritual practitioners living humbly alongside rivers in nature as they did in previous ages? Very good question, and the answer is yes. Actually, there should be a revival of such a thing. Now, having said that, of course, I have to give this caveat, that several caveats, actually. First of all, I think I understand why you're even asking this, and that is because, indeed, there is a golden age that is coming. I've spoken about this for decades now, actually. Decades. The first time I was recorded saying this, I think, was 2008, but I was saying it for maybe a few decades before then. There is a golden age that is coming. What does that mean? That means that people are going to be much more spiritual than they were in previous past, meaning, right now, the last 100 years, etc. But it also means that many of the traditions, the good traditions of the past, are going to be restored, and they're going to be restored in this golden age. So that being the case, this is, I believe, why you're asking this. Now, that's the first caveat. Second caveat is this. I've said this again and again, that is it necessary to be this sort of a sage in order to grow spiritually? Do you have to live in a cave, live in an ashram, or as you say here very beautifully, live humbly alongside a river in nature? You don't need to. However, there are going to be a lot of people doing that 100 years from now, 500 years from now, compared to today. So absolutely that's going to happen. So you ask, will there be a revival of spiritual practitioners doing this? Yes, there will. For that matter, there will be ashramas, there will be yogis living in caves. There will always be a few. There are some right now, today. Again, is it necessary to live such a dedicated lifestyle in order to know truth, to know God? No. A person can be married, a person can have a job, etc., and they can grow spiritually. But will there be such individuals in the future? Yes, there will. So I hope that answers the question. Give me a moment, please, as I look at just a few more of these questions. Very good. All right. Here's a nice question that it's a two-parter, actually, that I will indeed answer. And the first part is, Namaste Sri Acharya. First, I would like to thank you because your videos have been a spiritual guidance for me on my path of Vaishnavism. Thank you. Well, first, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful statement. Very nice of you. But then your question is, can you please comment on the shikha? Is it necessary for a householder to shave his head into a shikha to make spiritual progress? Or can he have long hair and beard, I suppose, like mine? Jaya Shri Krishna. Very good. Let me indeed answer this, and let me say I'm going to answer this conclusively. In other words, I'm going to give you the real answer, not my opinion. I actually don't have opinions. Opinions don't exist within me. Let me give you the conclusive answer, and that is, first of all, let me give you a clue as to what the answer is. Have you studied Sanatana Dharma? What I mean is, have you studied actually the Vedic scriptures? Have you looked into the personages who have lived thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago? Have you looked at the gods? Have you looked at Indra? Have you looked at Surya? Have you looked at Brahma? Have you looked at the rishis? Have you looked at the yogis of the past? Have you seen images of them? Have you read descriptions of them? I can tell you I've read hundreds of descriptions of them, of individuals, including what they look like. And what will you see? Well, what you will see is that on the one hand, there is the karma kanda aspect of Vedic strictures. In other words, there are the rules and regulations for the typical individual living within a Vedic society, which we are not. But let's say we were. There are those strictures for the common individuals living within a Vedic society. Then there are the actual accomplished yogis, rishis, gurus, acharyas, etc., etc., etc. And what we see is that there is a distinct difference between one versus the other. So when it comes to the idea of shaved head and shikha, there are places, I've read them myself, I've read all the Vedic scriptures, if you're new to this channel and you don't know that. There are places within the Vedic scriptures where it says, yes, an individual, a brahmana specifically, and householder should have shaved head and shikha. It actually says that. But then what also do we see? We see a veritable army of not just nice little householders doing their little yagya in a hut somewhere. We see individuals who are so exalted and so advanced that they can quite literally venture to Vaikuntha and back to the material world effortlessly. And how do they look? Do some of them have shikhas? Actually, let me give you again the conclusive answer. Very few, if any. What they tend to be are individuals who indeed have long hair and beards. You look at someone like Narada Muni, who is the greatest example of this, actually. He's not just some nice little householder sitting next to his hut doing a little yagya by the river Saraswati. He is the king of all rishis. If we understand what even a rishi is, he's the king of them. He literally has the ability to be on earth. You blink your eyes, he's speaking to Brahma. You blink your eyes, he's in a different universe. You blink your eyes, he's in Vaikuntha. You blink your eyes, he's back. This is what we're talking about. And he has long, luxurious hair, etc. Shall I give 10,000 more examples? So what is my point? My point is this, that on the one hand, yes, we have this Vedic stricture. In other words, when you are a beginner, yes, you follow these rules and regulations very, very strictly. But then it comes to the point where you transcend such lower rules and regulations. Does it mean a moral free-for-all? You can do whatever you want? No, never. That never happens. That's New Age. The idea that, I'm so spiritually advanced, I don't even have to follow morality anymore. No. This is why I'm using this term, Vedic stricture. Not scripture. It's a very different word. When you follow these strictures, these are little rules and regulations that help us along our way in the very beginning of our path. But then it comes to the point where, indeed, again, when you look at the great Vaishnavas throughout history, even the Acharyas, Nimbarka Acharya, there aren't many images of him, but he's one of the most important Acharyas in one of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. Any image you see of him, he's got long hair. And on and on and on and on and on and on. So this is what is of importance. Are there certain strictures that at a certain point in one's life one should follow in order to help to catapult oneself outside of the neophyte stage? Sure. But please look also at those individuals who are not the neophytes, who are literally liberated, and an army of them throughout history. They don't care for shikhas. They don't need them. So that's the answer. Very good. But good question. Let me just check the time. We have a little bit more time. That's very good. So let me see what other questions are here. Give me a moment, please. Very nice. Here's a good question, actually, and it's on one of my favorite subjects when it comes to actual practice, when it comes to sadhana, and that is tapasya, or austerity. Namaste, Acharya-ji. What are austerities, and how do they help us spiritually? I keep coming across this word in the scriptures time and again. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Well, thank you for those very kind words. And let me deal with one of the last things you said here, and that is that you keep coming across this word in the scriptures time and again. Oh, yes, absolutely you do. And the reason why that's the case is because of its importance. And there are variations on this word, actually. Tapasya, vairagya, a person can be called a vairagi, that is an individual who is renounced, etc. And that is the idea specifically of tapasya, or the idea of doing austerities. And there are different translations for this word. One can say austerities, one can say penances, etc. But now, to get to your first question, what is, what are austerities? So the word again is tapasya, sometimes tapas, sometimes tapah. But what this term actually means is the conscious, aware, systematic approach of doing things that are a difficulty toward oneself in order to elevate oneself spiritually. So what does this mean? This exists in pretty much every real spiritual tradition in the world. So again, not recent, nonsense, but we're talking about real traditional religions. This exists in Christianity. This exists in even many of the Abrahamic religions, though they don't quite know what they're doing. It exists certainly throughout the length and breadth of Sanatana Dharma, within Buddhism, Jainism. Oh, Jainism is known for tapasya, actually. A lot of people don't really know a lot about Jainism. They heard the word and maybe they read a Wikipedia article. One of the foundations of Jainism, including nonviolence, is actually the idea of tapasya, of great austerity. But the idea is this, that basically, as a type of spiritual practice, we have all of our other practices. That is, we do meditation, for example. We follow the yoga system. We follow the, indeed, virtues and ethical system of Sanatana Dharma. We do puja. We visit tirthas, that is, we go to holy places, pilgrimage, etc., etc. But on top of all this, if an individual is a serious spiritual practitioner, they will additionally do tapasya. Now, what are these austerities? There are many of them, actually, many, many. One of the biggest one is fasting. So this is one austerity where an individual will take a vow to fast for a certain period of time. And the kinds of fasts will vary. Sometimes it's a juice fast. Sometimes it's a water fast. Sometimes they'll do a fast saying, I will only eat this one thing. There are yogis, for example, who say, I will eat only rice for 4 months. And nothing but rice, and with no salt, no seasoning, just rice for 4 months. That's an austerity. It's a type of fast. There are other yogis who will, there was one famous one who passed away not long ago, who would eat nothing but milk. He drank milk, that's all he had. Milk and water. You have to have water, etc. So fasting is one sort of austerity. Other sorts of austerity are, for example, you take a vow to do something that's physically difficult. So you take a vow, for example, that, you see how I'm sitting in Ardha Padmasana. You will take a vow to be in Ardha Padmasana, half lotus, or full lotus, Padmasana. Of course, you have to be an accomplished yogi to do this, including accomplished with asana. And you say, I will sit in this way and I will do mantra for 8 hours and I will not move. I will not get up to go to the bathroom. I will not stretch my legs. I will not do anything. But I will sit here like this for 8 hours. Here's my clock. I just put it down. When 8 hours has gone by, then I will end this. Now, this is something that's difficult. And of course, I can give 1,000 other examples, but you get the idea. You do something that is difficult, bordering on painful. You see, ideally, you don't want to do something, you don't want to do anything that's going to damage you. No, but that will be difficult. But you're doing it on purpose. And why? You're doing it for spiritual reasons. That is, with the idea that you're making yourself stronger, you're strengthening your will, you're strengthening your discipline, you're strengthening your ability to think long-term, etc., etc., etc. There are many practical benefits of engaging in tapasya. People who have done tapasya have known this. If you've done a fast, let's say a water fast, nothing but water for like 3 days, you know the benefits that will be there even mentally. You're a stronger person at the end of it. But then spiritually speaking, which is why a person should do such austerity, such tapasya, what you do is that you also do this in a mood of bhakti, of devotion toward God. in such a way that you're not doing it just for yourself. You see, even spiritually speaking, interestingly, a person can do tapasya, austerities, just for themselves spiritually. And at the end of it, oh yes, I'm stronger, I'm more disciplined, I'm this, I'm that. They deserve a little applause. Very nice. They did something good for themselves where they're a better person, or at least a stronger person. But infinitely, and I don't use my words indiscriminately, infinitely superior to doing something spiritual just for you is to do something in service and devotion toward God. And when we do tapasya, this is the best way to do it. I'm going to fast for 3 days. All right. As a result, at the end of this fast, will I be a little thinner, a little healthier? I'll have more discipline. Sure, that's nice too. But as I'm fasting, I'm going to use my fast to increase my devotion toward God and awareness of Him. That's infinitely better. So indeed, this is the nature of austerity. I think I've answered both your questions actually. How does austerity help us spiritually? Well, exactly in that way. That when we're doing austerity, but we're doing it in devotion toward God, then at that point, we're increasing our relationship with God. We're increasing our service orientation toward God, etc. So I hope that answers your question. Very nice. Good. Here's a very nice question. I will take a few more because we have a little bit of time. I'm going to save time toward the end. Again, I told people at the beginning, do not go away because I have several announcements toward the end, actually. But I will answer a few more questions here. And then at that point, again, I'll make a few announcements. Here's another nice question here. Namaste, Sri Acharya-ji. What does it mean when some followers of Ramanuja say that Bhagavad Ramanuja's compassion far exceeds that of Bhagavan, and, quote, he is one of the most apt to be served constantly. Very good. Even above Bhagavan. Thank you. Very nice. Well, let me tell you, this is something that not just followers of Ramanuja say, actually. This is something that's understood by all Vaishnavas, and that Prabhupada himself said again and again. It's actually found in the Vedic scriptures. I can't give you exact verse citation this second, but I've read it quite a few times in actual Vedic scriptures, where it explains that Krishna himself actually says that, one who is, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, one who is my devotee is wonderful, but truthfully, that greatest devotee is one who is a devotee of my devotee. So Krishna himself actually says this again and again. So the fact that Sri Vaishnavas also say this about Ramanuja, oh yes, this is indeed the case. I would say the same thing, myself being a Sri Vaishnava, myself being a follower of Vishishta Advaita and Ramanuja, among other great Vaishnava Acharyas. Oh, this is indeed the case. Now the question is, why is this the case? The understanding is this, and again it goes back to Sri Guru Tattva, that is the principle of Sri Guru. And that is that, indeed, if we are to try to approach God directly, if we are to approach Krishna directly, is that wrong to do? Of course not. No, we should approach God. We should pray to God. We recite the names of God, etc., etc., etc. However, this is the nuanced understanding of the Vaishnava, that an individual who is a Shuddha Bhakta, who is a pure devotee of Krishna, is someone who is very dear to Krishna. Krishna himself makes this clear throughout the Bhagavad Gita. He even says to Arjuna that you are my Priya, you are my dear, you are my friend, etc. Devotees are very dear to Lord Krishna. This being the case, if we want to have the mercy and the compassion of Lord Krishna, the easiest thing to do is this nuanced thing, become a devotee of his devotee. And then, that being the case, then we will know true compassion. Then we will be able to approach God very easily. And indeed, why is this the case? Again, because you can imagine. Imagine, there's someone who you're trying to know, and for nice reasons, for good reasons. You're not just some parasitical person. No, there's someone who is a great person, and you really have great admiration for them, and you want to know them very well. Well, you can try to approach that person, or, again, not in a calculating way, but very sincerely, you can approach their child. Let's say they have a son, like a 20-year-old, and you happen to bump into the person. Oh, listen, I love your dad, and I'd like to get to know you better as well, etc. And now that word gets back to the dad. The dad is going to be very happy. You see, it's one thing, the powerful dad is accustomed to people trying to approach him all the time. But now someone was very affectionate toward his son, who he loves. The dad's going to want to know that person and give his affection toward that person. In the same way, when we approach a Vaishnava, a true Vaishnava, no, not just someone who says that they are that, but someone who is, like I said, that's why I used this technical term, Shuddha Bhakta, a pure devotee, someone who is very close to God. When we approach that person, rather than directly trying to approach God, now God smiles upon us. So that's the understanding. This is why, again, first we approach Guru, then we approach God. So I hope that answers your question. Let me see if I can quickly answer one more, and then again I'm going to make a few announcements. But first let me just look at these questions very quickly. Good. Here is a good question, actually. And I will definitely answer this. And this will sadly have to be the last question because we end right on the dot at 3 p.m. Vedic Heartland time. Namaste, Sri Guru. In Catholicism, it is believed that only through the Church God can be truly known. What is the Vedic stand on this? Can one know God even if he has never heard of Dharmic scriptures? Good. These are two separate questions. But I'll answer them both, actually. As far as the first question, that in Catholicism it is believed that it is only through the Church that God can be truly known. What's the Vedic stand on this? Well, of course, needless to say, we disagree. We disagree for several reasons, actually. First of all, because Catholicism, and this is not to say anything negative in any way about Catholicism, but let me just say, the idea of only being able to approach God via one man-made institution, of course, does not make sense. And the Catholic Church, just like any other church, the Anglican Church, pick your favorite church, the Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Armenian Church, this church, that church, a Baptist, Southern Baptist. To say that only through a man-made organization can you know God, that's illogical. That's illogical. That does not take into account an individual's sincerity and individual's geographic location and on, 1,000 questions that can be asked. So no, we certainly don't agree with that. We do, on the other hand, agree with the idea that if an individual is to know God, they can approach God if they do so with sincerity, with humility, with patience, with zeal, that is truly enthusiastically, with devotion, and all of these important characteristics. This is what is of importance. All that being said, as far as what place an individual should go to in order to know God, very simply, that place that encourages the individual to develop all those qualities. That's the answer. So again, for a person to know God, they have to be, and this is not exhaustive, but a few things. They have to be sincere, they have to have humility, they have to have devotion, they have to have enthusiasm, etc., etc., etc. That being the case, you go to that place that most encourages you to develop those virtues, those spiritual virtues, regardless of what it's called. And we, that is, the members, followers, well-wishers of the International Sanatana Dharma Society, we know from personal experience that the ISDS is one of those places. Is it exclusively the only place? I've never said that. I never would say that. But is it one of those places? You better believe it. So that's the answer that we would give. And then, can one know God even if he has never heard of the Dharmic scriptures? Oh, yes, this also I've said quite a few times. You can look at religious and spiritual personages who knew nothing about the Vedic scriptures per se, and due to the time frame in which they were living in, due to the geographic location that they were in, they still desired to know God and made tremendous spiritual progress. Let's say, for example, within medieval Christianity, someone like Saint Francis, Saint Teresa of Avila, so many individuals who were mystics, saints, etc. They never heard of Bhagavad Gita, but again, they developed those qualities that I mentioned before, of sincerity, humility, devotion, etc. So indeed, a person may not have read Bhagavad Gita, for example, and not due to any fault of their own. Again, let's say you're an individual, just to pick someplace, you're living in a hermitage in Bavaria in the 12th century. You've barely read the Bible. You certainly have not read the Bhagavad Gita. Can you still make spiritual progress and sincerely know God? Of course you can. So that's the answer, and I hope that's a good answer. Sadly, I need to stop here because, again, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to try to end as close to 3 o'clock as possible. But I promised people that we would have several announcements, and we do indeed have several announcements. And let me tell you what they are. First of all, the biggest and the most truly history-making, and when you see what I'm about to tell you, you'll see that I'm doing the opposite, actually, of exaggerating. First, a little bit of background information. People may or may not be aware of this. People in the ISDS very much are, and that is that just like other religions have their calendars, there's a Christian calendar. How do we know that? Because it's presently the year 2026. That's according to the Christian calendar, for people who aren't aware of that. This is not a secular calendar. That's the Christian calendar. There's an Islamic calendar. There's a Jewish calendar. There's a Buddhist calendar, and on and on and on, like this. Well, people may not be aware that there is a Vedic, no, not Indian, not Tamil calendar, not Gujarati, no. There is a universal Vedic calendar. It is called the Yugabda calendar. And in accordance with this calendar, right now is the year 5127. As of March 19th, it's going to be 1 year later. It's going to be 5128. Well, we have our own calendar. And it is a very complex calendar. And despite the fact that we have a beautiful calendar that begins at the very start of the Kali Yuga, actually. So as of March 19th, it will be 5,128 years since the Kali Yuga began. Despite the fact that we have this amazing calendar, no one knows about it. No one uses it. No one celebrates it. No one follows it within Sanatana Dharma. And when I say no one, of course, a few individuals here, one person over there, but not in a massive way. Well, one of the projects of the ISDS has always been to reestablish this calendar, and we are reestablishing it literally now. Two things. Number one, on that date, on March 19th, we are going to be celebrating the Yugabda New Year. We're going to be doing this in a massive way. Number two, we are in the process, and it will be published within days at the most, hopefully. We have created a beautiful print calendar. Just like other calendars you see where it has a beautiful image and then the calendar. You flip. The next month, beautiful image calendar. We in the International Sanatana Dharma Society have created one. It will be available for sale, again, within a few days, and it is all in accordance with the Yugabda calendar. So in a few days, people will be able to buy a print Yugabda calendar. So that's the first announcement. Second announcement, quickly, is that my next book, Meditations from the Temple of Iron, should also be available for purchase within days. Once that's the case, we will be announcing the link everywhere. It will be available on Amazon. And indeed, this is a very nice little book where I talk about spiritual weightlifting. As people may know, I am a weightlifter. I lift weights among many other disciplines that I do, but I do so spiritually as a meditation. Well, I've written a little book talking about this, how to lift weights and be physically fit while also using everything that you're doing physically, lifting barbells, lifting dumbbells, anything like this, but doing it as a meditation. So that book will be available within days. Again, we will announce it. The second thing is I am expanding a previous book that first came out, I think, in 2006, long time ago, called The Shakti Principle. I'm expanding that tremendously right now. It's going to end up being at least 50 pages bigger, maybe more, than the original. And indeed, that will probably be available for purchase in, I'm guesstimating, 3 or 4 weeks, because I'm getting close to finished with expanding that. So those are the announcements. So again, everyone be on the lookout. If you follow us anywhere, if you follow us on X, if you follow us on Facebook, if you follow us on Telegram, etc., please look at all those places. If you don't follow us there, look at the description of this video and the links are there. And you can follow us on all these places. We will be announcing when all of these things systematically come out. I have about 5 other announcements, but I'll save those for the future, because again, we want to end on time. And with that, everyone, before you leave, please, I want to tell you, visit our website, dharmacentral.com. All of our books are available there. As I always mention, we have, as of a few days from now, we will have 15 books available. Also, if you wish to donate to the International Sanatana Dharma Society, you can also do that on dharmacentral.com. The last thing is we have a Discord server. If you derived benefit from what you saw today and what you heard today, please join our Discord server. The link should be here on the chat. And what the Discord server is, it is a discussion forum that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ISDS devotees. If you have more questions that I couldn't get to, you can ask my students who are on there. You can have conversation. You can have guidance in your own spiritual practice, etc., etc. So with that, again, thank you everyone for being here for this special Q&A session. Next time we get together next Sunday, we will resume with the Mukunda Mala Stotra. And with that, everyone, I ask you all to please take very, very good care of yourselves. Namaste. And everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam shrijamyaham Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge